Here we are. We're going to get going. This is our first of many conversations we hope to have here in Mary Magdalene's School with Petra and Anna, but also with myself. I'm a member of the team here. I'm Bliss Williams, and I'm going to introduce you just briefly to Petra and Anna. Petra van der Linden Brussen and Anna Vanickova. And I say that very clearly because I just literally learned to pronounce Anna's last name yesterday. So I've been apparently pronouncing it incorrectly. So very important. Now everyone knows, from the United States, very often we do mispronounce European names. So I think this is important that we start out that way. Petra and Anna, if you're not familiar with them, we are all part of the Mary Magdalene School, which is located in 𝐕𝐴ZLE, France. Petra and Anna are mystics and master alchemists, and they are the co-founders of Mary Magdalene's School for Remembrance and Unity Consciousness. And it is a modern day mystery school, which at some point we will discuss a little bit further what exactly that means. But today we're here to talk about real conversations. So the way this came about is if you're part of the community, the Mary Magdalene's community, you've gotten to know Anna and Petra. And if not, you might have seen them a bit on social media. But if you know them and if you're involved with the school, it's typically either in the Sophia Christ Healing Circle or it's in the Remembership community. And these are gatherings that we have regularly. And they tend to be a bit more contemplative because that's really the purpose of what we're doing here in the school, right? We're going deeper and we're connecting to the higher realms. And so it tends to be a bit more contemplative. If you've had the opportunity to attend a retreat, either in 𝐕𝐴ZLE, as I was able to do last summer, or in Cyprus, which I'll be doing in the upcoming October. We have a Cyprus retreat coming up. If you've been with them live in a retreat, you realize that their personalities are a little bit different, a little bit larger, a little bit more fun. And so we want to make sure that you see the real them. And so we're having these conversations just so that everyone gets to know them a little bit better while learning more about the school. So that's why we're here today. So welcome to all of you who are joining us. Quick conversations, 20 to 30 minutes, grab a cup of coffee, have your lunch. If you're driving the car, you can put it on, but get to know more about Anna and Petra and the school. So first off, we're going to talk about they live currently in 𝐕𝐴ZLE, which is where the school is located, but neither of them are from 𝐕𝐴ZLE. In fact, neither of them grew up in France. And so we're going to start, and we're going to go way back. We're going to start with Petra and ask Petra, where did you grow up?
Oh, I grew up in the Netherlands. So I'm not so far away from France in that way, but I grew up there. And yeah, I spent most of my time there. I traveled a lot around the world. And I had always this pull towards France. I knew there was something there that would one day come into my life there. And yeah, many opportunities came along and it didn't happen. And with Mary Magdalene School, it did happen. Yeah. So here we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Anna, you also are not from France.
No, I'm from Canada. I was born in Canada, grew up in Canada. My ancestors are Czech. I lived in the Czech Republic for 15 years after I finished my graduate studies. And then I was brought here by the higher realms in a very mysterious way. I had no idea. And brought to 𝐕𝐴ZLE, which I'd never heard of before. And I was found a house by the higher realms. It was all directed from above. And a few years later, I met Petra and our collaboration started. So yeah, it's very interesting.
So I'm curious because, some of us come into our more spiritual journeys a little bit later in life, and others, it's always been there, right? I mean, just, from as children, they remember connecting with the realms in various ways. And I'm curious, what was it like for you growing up? Because I know that both of you, especially, I want to start with Petra, because I know your career path, you didn't start out on a spiritual career path, let's say. Am I right? I mean, as I recall, you were in the corporate world.
I was a what?
in the corporate world, in the business world?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was. Well, it depends on when you think that your career starts. Because when I go way back, and I mean like when I was a little child, I mean as long as I remember, I was having visions. I was, let's say, what they would call foreseeing things, moving into the light realms to meet my light friends, to have conversations, then to learn from them. So looking back to that time, actually my entire youth, it was really, I always said I felt like I lived like two lives. So I had the life that I had in my private life, where I had all these visions, I had all this knowledge just active about astrology, about herbs, about oils. It was just there as a little child. I'm talking here really like young, yeah. And it has been always stayed open in a way. But when I came into my life, into that period where you start to study and you want to conform also in a way in your puberty to the group, and I was able to study easily. And so I did that whole tour that we do in the West, studying, and in the end, I ended up in what we call a career in the West. While simultaneously, I had my practice with my herbs and my reflexology and my massage and all these other things. I stepped into a career which ended up indeed in running big companies as a CEO and as a vice president and so on and so on. And yet the other part has always been present, but there has been a moment that I said, okay, enough. It's now I've lived a whole part of my life that I needed to live. And it's time now to fully dedicate my life to what was asked actually from both of us to bring in. Yeah.
So I want to circle back to that, but I want to hear Anna's upbringing also, and kind of the path that you took before you came to 𝐲𝐴.
Yeah. There's so many ways to answer that question, so I'll try to be simple. I was brought up in a way where silence was considered to be very sacred. So when a child in my household or an adult was in a state of deep concentration, then we were not supposed to interrupt that person because there was a feeling that there was something really sacred happening. So I did not come from a religious family per se, spiritual family in that way, but there was a deep connection to nature as being sacred. And I did see, I was a visionary. I could see things just like Petra. We both have that clairvoyancy very much activated, I think, from an early age. And I was really interested in all the telepathy, telekinesis, all these psychic sciences from very early age on. But there wasn't anyone in my environment that could really guide me. So I would read a lot. I was interested in these phenomena, which I felt were absent from my immediate surroundings. And at the age of 12, I had an epiphany. We were going to church. Like I said, my family wasn't really religious, but symbolically, we did go to church from time to time. So and we were getting ready to go to church, and I had an epiphany that all of a sudden I had a pantheistic understanding of our world. And what that means is that I knew that God was in everything. So that opened, and at that moment I knew I couldn't go to church anymore. It didn't sit. So, I informed my mom about that, and that was completely fine with her. And it was around the age of 19. There was many years there where I felt there was something missing. I knew there was something missing, but I didn't know what that thing was. And around the age of 19, I started to immerse myself in Buddhist texts. So my immersion into the spiritual world in a conscious way really started from that angle through a very cognitive approach, which I think is actually the way that most people, when they're when they are educated and brought up in the Occidental world, then we need to go through the space of the mind to understand gradually certain phenomena. So bit by bit, then I moved into the healing world. I became a professional musician. I was a classical pianist. I moved into multidisciplinary arts, performing, and from that, very much experimental performance, and then from that into the healing world. So all that was in my 20s, and then of course I had 3 children, and again that all moved to a whole other arena. And during this time, as our life path would have it, many things happened that I could never have possibly predicted. And one of those was a resurrection of an ancient line of Egyptian solar priestesses. And I would not have been able to talk about it at the time that way because I had no idea what was happening. None of us did. We just, when we came together and started to spend time together and started to raise our children together and started to create a school together, and we started to do rituals together and spend, let's say, a month at a time together, putting our children to bed in the evening and spending 3 hours in a chapel together, doing different kinds of energetic work, healing, all that. Then bit by bit, we started to restore our memory of very ancient practices, and we started to live them again. And it was only that we were told later on, this is what is happening. We were told that by a psychic, an Italian psychic. And so it slowly, bit by bit, the memory started coming back. And that was in my early 30s. So, there's a lot more to say about that. Yeah, it's pure magic how all this happens and how our life paths evolve. It's incredible.
It is incredible. And I want to circle back a little bit because both of you, so as you mentioned, Anna is married and has children. Petra is also married, no children this time around anyway. And so at some point, you had the calling to really take a pretty dramatic shift in life. Well, it feels like it would be for me. I don't know if it feels like it was for you, but you had to go to, I presume, your spouses at that time and say, hey, I think we need to uproot and move and change life pretty dramatically. And what do you think? And I'm curious, how was that received? Were you hesitant to go down this path? In fact, maybe even a step before you hear this calling, was it an immediate yes? Or was it, whoa, this is going to be huge. I got to think about this. How did that kind of come to pass?
Well, I think there's been different phases. I think somewhere I have felt always that it would come to this moment. There has been a deep knowing that all of this capacity would lead to something, but I could not define the something. So I've done the different paths. I've studied all kinds of healing modalities and the astrology, and you call it. And then there was the business part. And I always felt like, I'm waiting for that moment of oneness. And I tried to, of course, use both sides in both worlds constantly, but it was still different ways. Yet, there came a moment, and there has been a whole process with my former husband or my deceased husbands that has been really deeply life-changing. The entire period I was living with him as what I call my twin soul. That has been so transformational, so fulfilling, so initiatic also. And there was so much memory that led in a way to the moment, which was after he passed over, to say, okay, I need to make a full break with the world I know so well on a daily basis to be able to capture what it is that I feel deep in my soul. And so there came a moment which was quite strong because, you're on a path, you're in a specific way of living, you're in a way of a social life, everything that comes with it. And then to say, okay, I'm going to quit with all of that, which I did at a certain moment, to just have space for myself to go back inside and to listen to what my soul is guiding me to. And it was quite clear, it came bit by bit, that all that I had done this life, but also all the memories I may have had from other experiences, that they were ready to be brought into this life, and that it was deeply guided in a, what I would call a divine flow. So I stepped into that, and bit by bit the pockets opened, and I started to do things, to bring things into the world bit by bit. But I must say, it took me, if I look back, I think it took me around 5 years to deconstruct on all levels in my body system what I was used to and how I was raised and how I was taught, and all these things in our culture, to let go of all of that, to be able to fully be ready for the next chapter in my life. So it was not that I did not already work with it, or, I mean, it's not like that, but in myself, I felt that there was still more deconstruction necessary to be fully ready for the next phase, which I feel came together when we actually were called to VEST Mary Magdalene School. Yeah, so it's a whole different, I mean, one day you know it and the next day you don't know it. And I mean, all these things happens. And in a way, talking about spouses, my current husband, I mean, he's been waiting for this moment. So he's been really watching me, knowing that there was also a deeper reason why we were together, and that it had to do with this new step in my life. And he's been waiting all these years, like, when is it really going to click together? So the moment, and we may come to that later, that we knew, like, okay, now it's the start. He was also relieved, I think, like, oh my gosh, now she gets going. What she felt intuitively. Yeah. So he was kind of relieved. So there was no issue. I mean, no resistance there in the field. Yeah.
Well, and what's so fun is that Philip is part of the school. He's a very integral part of the school. And so again, excuse me, if many of you have been involved with the community, you might have even met Philip. But so that, he's very involved. In Anna's case, at least, I don't get that same sense. I mean, with your husband, of involvement. And then you've got your children to talk through, and we know that it can be very difficult to talk about things that are like, about higher realms and that type of thing with children as they're growing up at times. So I'm curious, Anna, was there any resistance in your life and with your family to make this significant move? And I'm curious, how old were your children at the time of the move to 𝐉𝐨𝐺?
Well, in some way, it's a continuum. I met my husband almost 25 years ago. I was starting to move into healing modalities, healing work. I was practicing as a healer. I really was starting to work with spiritual response therapy. So he doesn't know me in any other way than this way. I mean, this is just who I am. This is how it is, and this is how I live. And, when I would go into meditation or into women's circle work or into ceremony ritual, then I would say, okay, I'm going to work now. So that's just how it's been always. And we had children within spiritual community. So that has always been normal for my children. I don't particularly talk to my children or school them in the realms that I'm working with. It's completely open. They see what I do. If they're interested, they ask questions. If they ask questions, I answer them to the best of my capability. And if they need healing work, then I'm available, but so is my husband. We kind of somehow coach them together on that level. So there is no sense I have within myself that I need to teach them anything. There's none of that, which is a really wonderful gift for myself, because I feel free in the relationship and I don't feel that they're missing out on anything. I don't think they are. If they need something, they come. If they don't, then they don't, on a spiritual level. In our move, we were living together in Prague. That's where we had our children. And David, in some way, my husband has been funnily enough, and very unconsciously, he's a builder, he's a craftsman, and he has helped other spiritual communities at the beginning phases of their communities to build, like physically build their spaces. So there's some kind of a deeper thread and a deeper design there, a larger divine design that we've come together as well at that level. And knowing that he's there to help build really physical spaces for spiritual community. And of course, he's been helping Petra and Philippe with their house. He built our house, or he's redone our house. So while he's not consciously involved in the work or in the school, he is very, very, very much present and in his role in the higher architecture. And coming to France, well, I knew that we were going to be leaving the Czech Republic. My angels came to tell me 2 years before. They said, get ready because you're going to be moving. We didn't know. I didn't know where we were going to be moving. I shared that with my husband, and he said, well, there's no way I'm moving. You know, I'm staying here. My business is going well. I like where I live, so I'm not going anywhere. And so I just said, well, let's just wait and see what happens. And then circumstances created themselves where he had to leave. So, you know, these things are coming from above. There is a divine design, and we moved to France, and he didn't speak a word of French, and he had to learn French. And you know, his first language is Czech, and he luckily he spoke English. But he had to learn everything, and he didn't know I already spoke French. You know, I went to a French school when I was younger, so he came here and heard me speak French for the first time, and he was in a total shock. And it took him about a year to integrate the fact that, wow, you know, what have I gotten myself into? But knowing that it was right as well. So, yeah, I mean, that's all part of the life journey.
Your children would also have had to learn French, yes?
Yes.
They didn't?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, they didn't speak French. They all had to learn French, yeah.
Was there any resistance from them to the move?
No.
And so here we are in 𝐕𝐫𝐴 now. We have this beautiful life. I want to, you know, I think one of the things that people struggle with, and so it's really helpful to hear your path, is this when you make this decision to really go deeper into your own personal growth, spiritual growth, or really to the next level, you are separating from things that you've known forever, and people and lifestyles and that type of thing. What would you say to those who are kind of experiencing that? I know I am and have been for quite some time now, and it's an ongoing process. What would you say to those who are kind of going through that, who know they're meant to take that leap, but are concerned about what they're leaving behind and not knowing what's to come? What are your thoughts on that? What would you say? Besides jump.
Jump. Well, I mean, I know that path very well, of course. And I'm always in conversation with whatever calling comes in to see where I am and where the calling is, and if it's one, to investigate that. And everybody does it in its own way. I think with the calling to invest the school, to start I mean, the school means like bringing in the intelligence of the channel into the world. That was a kind of a choiceless choice, yeah. If it comes, you know it. And I felt as if my body was moving on its own. There was no way I could interfere anymore with any of my great skills of holding me back from this journey. So, and it was really interesting because when the calling came, and I shared that with Anna early in the morning because it happened during the night. I said, I need to ask you something. And she was also like, I don't know what you're going to ask, but the answer is yes. And the same day, we had no expertise on social media. We knew that we needed to speak out in the world, and social media was the way to do that. So we did. And then the whole thing happened, that people found us So you get also confirmation in these little steps, like, okay, oh, wonderful. Oh, I didn't. Those are things you cannot think of, you know. If you would have asked me 2 years before, or even 1 year, or maybe a few weeks before that moment, that we would be doing what we're doing now, I had never thought of that, never, ever. So it happens a kind of on its own. So the moment you move, you feel the flow, you feel the winds under your wings in a way. And you just go and things happen and it goes kind of on its own. Of course not. You have to, I mean, there's a part that always needs to be present and that moves forward. But there's also an ease and a flow. And I was once in conversation with Miten. Maybe you know him from Deva Premal and Miten, who make beautiful songs. And he, in a conversation somewhere, he said, and I always remember that, like, you know, Petra, if that happens, life is going to happen to you. And that should, for some people, come with a warning, because my gosh, if life is going to happen to you, you get the full spectrum. And that is true. I can only say that is so true, and that is beautiful, and it comes with all the colors of the diamonds, all the facets of it. That's and I mean, we knew also within this calling, and we both had an experience that we felt like everything we've done, at least in this life, but I'm sure it came from many experiences that was brought together in such a divine architecture that it was the closest maybe to say is that it had a kind of a divine fulfillment. There was a fulfilling element in that that was kind of complete, or that is complete. Yeah, so you know that there's a divine orchestration at work. There is a soul mission that is reaching its point of why it came to Earth. And of course, all the other elements are part of that. Yeah, it's the whole journey that's part of that whole soul mission. But if you feel like you can bring all of that into that specific calling, then you feel there's nothing not used in our systems that is available to bring this into the world. And that's very fulfilling. Yeah. And it gives a sense of oneness in oneself. So I was talking about, let's say, these two different lives that I had, yeah, kind of like the business life and the healing life and the guidance life. And in this, it all comes together somehow, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that it's always easy. Let me just make that really clear.
I think that's exactly the point. And I think that's the important message. I don't think it is easy, even if you know it's right. I don't think that means it's easy. And especially, you know, now so many of us are untangling from the, let's call it the illusion or the matrix of the real world. So it's definitely a challenging path, but I think that's one of the beauties of being in community with you both and with the school's community is there are others to share the journey. You know, you don't feel like you're alone, because I think sometimes I feel that in the real world I live in, there's very few that understand me and this path, but in our community, everyone understands, even though our journeys are different, but they're also very similar. So, so that's the beauty of it. We're getting close to time here, so we're going to wrap up for this time. We have so much more to talk about. I know it goes so fast, but we want to invite, you know, anyone who's getting to know us, please, we have free offerings that are available. You can pop in for a Sophia Christ Healing Circle. You can look more into the Remembership community. We've got online programs that happen, lots of meditations, lots of things on the website. So please continue to join us, and then look for us on social media. We'll continue to have these conversations to learn more about this path that we're on together, and about Anna and Petra and as guides as we move forward, and really a lot of fun that can happen when you take this leap. So thank you for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste.